Since we were just talking about royals, let's go into the royal effect because the first thing in pop culture, and I think the biggest out of everything we're going to talk about today, it's the Princess Diana and Princess Grace Kelly effect, right? So let's talk about Diana first and how that 1981 wedding with Charles changed the game.
All right. Well, I was going to say, I love that time period, but Kevin, I was a baby. Do you want to start? Because what were you in your, you were in your, what, 30s at that point? No, I was going to say,
Can you tell that they are pseudo brother and sister?
Kevin's got in the trenches experience. Mine is purely academic. So Kevin, do you want to start here and tell us what it was like? Do you remember?
No, I don't, because I was 11 years old. I do remember a lot about it, though.
Did y'all stay up and watch it, though? Because
no, I did not.
I mean, I was an infant.
You were an infant, yeah.
I was 11.
You were 11, though, and that was a big deal.
Yeah,
my mom said she was up.
Stayed up.
No, my mom did, yeah.
Everyone stayed up, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that ushered in the 80s of opulence. I mean, that is the wedding of the century. I don't care what anybody says. That is the wedding of the century. It is the dress. It is the age of romance. You know, I mean, even though now it's so weird to look at that wedding now, knowing what we know behind the scenes and how tragic that love story was, right? I mean, it's very hard. And it's weird now that with your point to the crown, people are shocked. I'm like, I was not shocked because I read People magazine every week as a child. So I knew.
We saw the writing on the wall.
But it was really the rise of romance. It was the dress. It was the drama of the train, even if it was super wrinkly. It was the veil. There was just so much. It was so many children who were in the wedding. And it was just this age of glamour. I mean, that's what that was. And it came with tons of taffeta and florals, and it just carried through for years and years and years. And that's what that really did for the world. It globally changed weddings forever.
It was our first fairy tale princess, really.
Absolutely.
It come to life.
Yeah, I would say between her and Grace Kelly, really. And then it was, not too long after that was, of course, Sarah Ferguson Fergie.
Yes.
And that kind of, it was not the same grandeur, but I mean, it certainly was an exclamation point to the Windsor Castle. You know what I mean? In that family, or the Windsor family, I should say. Mm-hmm.
For Say Yes to the Dress fans, Say Yes to the Dress UK with David Emanuel as the Randy Finoli. David Emanuel and his wife were the designers behind Diana's iconic dress.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's it's incredible, all of it. So it just really set the tone for the 80s. I mean, it just really did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it really got copied by so many brides in like a smaller scale way, but still, right? Like in 1991, Mariah Carey, her first marriage,
that was
Tommy
wild.
Mottola,
yeah,
she said flat out that she emulated Diana. Like she wanted that dress. So her off the shoulder, shiny satin dress. She wore the crown. She wore the tiara. Which is coming back again.
It is.
She wanted to look like Diana, and there was a few other brides I had made.
Well, Celine Dion had the huge. I mean, she had that huge headpiece and the big dress and all of that. I mean, everybody wanted a piece of that glamour and that sort of princess look. It was just huge, and it led to the opulence of the 80s, which carried through until, of course, the stock market crash later on in the later 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a really good point, actually. It really was the height of opulence.
Opulence and big everything. And
Yeah.
that really ushered in a big time period for weddings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because before that, you're coming off the 70s, which were a lot more streamlined. You had a little more bohemian vibe and laid back. You had one of my favorite looks is Bianca Jagger when she married Mick Jagger, and she was pregnant, which people didn't realize at the time, but she wore the Yves Saint Laurent smoking jacket with nothing underneath and the trousers. Chic. I love that look. So
Absolutely. The 60s and 70s. Yeah. I mean, you hadn't seen that sort of glamour. Well, obviously, again, Grace Kelly, which we'll talk about, but like post-World War was some glamour. And then it really, it does go in time with the 60s it's that laid back, but it was also there was a lot of tragedy going on. So you thought, well, we're not going to go big. Yeah. And then the 80s was like celebration time. It was wild. It was
Megan's born. That we were celebrating the era you were born.
guys, please calm down, you know.
Which Celebration from Cool the Gang was the hit of 1980 and became like the wedding song, which I'm sure Kevin can appreciate
really
as a DJ.
Too. He's like, one more time for those in the back.
DJ, So Grace Kelly, as we've been referencing, she really did though. Like, Queen Victoria is who brought us the white dress. Mm-hmm. But then you didn't see a movement really with weddings until Grace Kelly in 1956 to Prince Rainier of Monaco. Mm-hmm. And so her dress was designed by Helen Rose, who was the costumer at MGM. And that dress has influenced so many people. People wanted the long lace sleeves back then. And then obviously over time it kind of went away. And then Kate Middleton.
Of course. She brought it back. Grace Kelly's the benchmark. I mean, that's it. The end. There's nobody. No one will ever bride as much as she brided. The end.
No one's brided. It's true though. But what's crazy to me is after her wedding, you didn't see the influx of people having like wanting the exact same dress like you did since Kate Middleton. Like once Kate Middleton brought it back, I feel like it's kind of gone like wildfire with like Nicole Richie had the high neck
Paris
lace.
Hilton had a high
Paris Hilton,
yeah.
Nikki Hilton. Who else? There's been a ton. Miranda Kerr, she did the same thing. I think she was purposely emulating Grace. And it's just, I feel like all of a sudden since Kate, it's like, we all want to be Grace Kelly.
I don't, it's like, may I say, it's like, okay, every year I talk on trends, right? And I got to get on stage with the glorious Terica, right? And she's a goddess among the rest of our mere mortals. So I know after 3 hours of makeup, and like, I'm still a mere mortal standing next to her. So I feel that way every year. I just do. And so I can't imagine Grace Kelly, and nothing against, of course, lovely Kate Middleton, but you get Grace Kelly, and then what, we're all going to try and emulate that? Like, let her like just let Terica be Terica, like Grace Kelly be Grace Kelly, and maybe I'm sure
it's true.
But no, but in all seriousness, though, you make a very good point. You probably didn't see a lot, but do you think that's because people? Well, I guess did you say 54, right? So
56.
56. Well, that wasn't too long into the 60s, though, where we headed into more of that kind of.
People didn't want demure.
They didn't want that. But may I say, though, about what, from my side of it, what was amazing from a PR side, right, is that for Grace Kelly, that Life magazine did a full spread on her. And that was really the beginning of the coverage of weddings in the media. And that's what I love is.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Coming from a publicist. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
But I as a magazine junkie, if you're looking at me, I never realized that is the first like true
It set the tone.
Yeah.
Think about the times though, is how in the 50s, how media is different than in the 80s to where it is now. Something happens now, everybody instantly sees it. Back probably in the 50s, it had to come through the newspaper or, it wasn't, things were different back then. So I think the way we consume things is influencing how fast it gets into the wedding industry as well.
Trends took longer back then.
It did.
It really did. No, that's
but they stayed
true.
longer, I think.
Probably for that same reason.